This is a lot of like symbolism and symbology type stuff. It's not even covering that level of just straight up gaslighting, inversion, not just the Odyssey, but they try to do this with the Bible. They try to do it with Christ. So I think that's what's going on with a lot of these films, that it's demoralizing you, it's humiliation ritual, it's erasing your history, all that stuff that we probably know about. But films can be done just to hide money. They're not even to make a movie. It's actually just a tax loophole, or it's a money laundering operation under the cover of making a film. And they'll even put it in the movies that that's what they've done. That's it really happened.
Have you seen the trailers for this like Odysseus movie that just came out?
Yeah.
Dude, so it's like there's no Greeks. I think Elliot Page is like one of the Greek warriors. Like Helen of Troy is like this.
Everybody's calling it Helen of Detroit.
Yeah, dude.
Or Felon of Detroit.
So what is that, man? Because I mean, it's they had the opportunity to make a masterpiece, but they're just forcing all this bullshit into it.
Yeah, I think when I wrote that like 10 years ago in 2016, I wasn't even thinking about how hardcore they would go with the gender stuff and the really hardcore woke stuff. Like, this is a lot of like symbolism and symbology type stuff. It's not even covering that level of straight up gaslighting, inversion. But I talk about it as inversion, which is a technique that actually goes back to Tibetan traditions. They have this idea that for you to go through a psychological transformation in terms of their view of progress, spiritually speaking, you have to do all the worst possible things, right? So some people who study that type of stuff, mind war, psi war, that kind of stuff, they will actually pull from pagan traditions, shamanic traditions, and they'll weaponize the way that even ancient religions would use these practices for psychological warfare or for public social engineering manipulation. So in other words, I think they've studied what the effects of debasing yourself are, and thus if they can debase the population, they become much more malleable and controllable. So I think that's what's going on with a lot of these films, that it's demoralizing you, it's humiliation ritual, it's erasing your history, all that stuff that we probably know about. But I'm just making the point that I think that it's a lot more scientifically understood than most people think, because again, these people have studied the way that films and TV and pop culture actually program you. Because they mastered that throughout World War II and the Cold War.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if, because I feel like back in the day, before streaming, movies at least had to be decent because they needed to make money.
Right.
And now things go almost right to streaming. So I wonder if now even the incentive to make money off the movie isn't there.
It's not even there.
So then they can just push whatever they want.
Whatever they want. Yeah. And there's all kinds of weird like scams that they do too, to where, for example, a lot of people don't know that films can be done just to hide money. They're not even to make a movie. It's actually just a tax loophole, or it's a money laundering operation under the cover of making a film. Films have even been intelligence operations. People don't know this, but Ben Affleck even made the movie Argo about the CIA using film production in Iran in the 1979 revolution as a cover for a CIA operation. So they'll even put it in the movies that that's what they've done. It really happened.
And people watch it, they're like, okay, cool. And they go home, watch Fox News, CNN.
It's like, yeah, right. Basically, you're watching Hollywood when you're watching that too. So yeah, all that kind of stuff was really just fascinating to me. And I think that you're hitting the nail on the head with how far it's progressed beyond the propaganda of the Cold War, which was fairly innocuous with like, James Bond. And for example, Bond was some of the first films to use product placement. So they figured out they could sell, martinis or watches, with James Bond, promoting it in the film. But it's a lot deeper than that. With nowadays, it's like no full on attack against, your biology, your progeny. Programming them with like the worst possible messages. So I think they take the classics of Western civilization, not just the Odyssey, but they try to do this with the Bible. They try to do it with Christ. They try to do it with Shakespeare. They were replacing, all the Shakespeare people with like black dudes and sisters, like 10 years ago. Yeah, they used to be
like in the plays. And
yeah,
stuff,
yeah, like Shakespeare in the Park. They would do like, ghetto version of Shakespeare in the Park. But and so I just remember when they did that Hamilton. There was that Hamilton play that was really popular like 8 or 10 years ago, and that was like all ghettofied or whatever.
Yeah, there's rap. Yeah,
something like that. And then of course, Amazon with The Hobbit and whatever their Lord of the Rings series was. You got all these black hobbits. It's like, I'm pretty sure there weren't black hobbits in Lord of the Rings, but I think that's to demoralize. It's to erase history. It's Maoist, because Mao's one of his projects was to erase all the past and just start brand new. So I think they really think that they can tell you that you have no history, erase your history, and thus make you into what they want you to be. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I loved good movies, but I feel like especially the past like 5, 6 years as I've tried to become more aware of this, I'll turn something on the first few seconds, I've got no, like it's ruined almost everything.
Yeah.
Can't watch it.
A lot of series too, they'll have like a really good hook with the first season. And then the second season, suddenly everybody's gay as hell.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, what?
All the characters suddenly become gay. They're all like, is what?
But it's like all this time I invested and now I have to.
No, yeah. So again, that's all by design. And again, I think you're absolutely right. We saw in the past with some of the big scandals with like Bud Light and Gillette, like it wasn't even about the money because they would just keep doing the same stuff, even though they're massively losing revenue. So there's an agenda, is what I'm trying to say. And we saw this agenda, by the way, with 2020 to 2023 or whatever, right? Like, why do all the corporations in the world, many of the governments in the world, all have the same policy?
Yeah, like in lockstep, unison.
In lockstep, right. So that shows you that like there is some higher level coordination that is pushing these things. And I'm just trying to say like the same level of people pushing the coordination during that COOF, the same people that have been pushing coordination through this kind of stuff.
Do you feel like as like say like America gets further away from like Christianity, this is just going to increase?
Absolutely.
Because this wasn't happening maybe to this degree in like the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah. So we shot 8 episodes on this whole idea of what is America. The idea is it Christian? Is it liberalism? Is it classical liberalism? What does it mean to be an Enlightenment experiment? And the thesis basically of the whole show that we're doing with Pavel Shalin, who's the Russian Pajot, he's got a huge Russian audience on YouTube. The whole thesis of the show is basically that my argument is that America was probably half Christian. So in the sense that, yeah, you have some of the principles of the founding fathers and our founding documents being, Mosaic law, Christian Commonwealth, English law, Roman law, canon law, all of those things do have an influence. But you also have this counter influence from the Enlightenment, from John Locke. You could say even an esoteric hermetic side of Freemasonic, influence on the founding documents, which is itself antithetical to Christianity. So I think within the American ethos, you've kind of had these two strands from the very beginning. And America was either going to go more in a Christian direction or more in a pagan atheist direction. And unfortunately, it seems like we've gone more and more in the direction of being, as we say in philosophy, epistemically self-conscious with our founding ideas. So if you've got two conflicting positions, you're either going to get more Christian or you're going to get less Christian. So I think we've gone in that direction, and that's led to, for me, this was like many years of like studying like Enlightenment philosophy. What are the problems in Enlightenment philosophy? What does it mean to have, a constitutional republic, all that kind of stuff? Could that even functionally be Christian? I mean, I suppose it's possible, but I think the whole idea ultimately is the presupposition that power comes from the bottom up. There's not authority in the world. Authority is a social contract that everybody just comes together to decide where it comes from. And that's really totally antithetical to what Christianity is. Christianity says, no, there is hierarchy and there is authority in the world. It's not tyranny, ideally, but you can't just create government or create an abstracted system that functions apart from some persons that have duties and obligations. And one of the things that Pavel notes, I think was really insightful, was that all of the modern project of the state after the Enlightenment basically divorces statecraft from obligation or duty, because the elected official isn't responsible to the people. He's actually responsible to his oligarchical clique that he's a part of. That's who he really cares about. And because he's going to be gone in a few years, so he can milk it. He's not responsible to the people. And for whatever flaws there might have been in, medieval statecraft or with kings or whatever, they still had a responsibility to who they represented. But an elected official doesn't have that. He's basically just a servant to, lobbyists or to his personal, mammon. He basically serves mammon.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of what we've hit on in that series. And to me, that's kind of the root problem of American politics, is that there is no real conservatism in America because America isn't based on explicitly Christian principles. Right. I think it should be.
And it kind of goes out of its way to separate them.
Exactly.
Saying that, yeah, we should separate these. And like growing up, you think, yeah, separate, like that's a good idea because it's in the doctrine.
Well, what's funny is that, in the original colonies, most of them were a form of theocracy. And I'm not saying we need to go back to Puritanism, but I'm saying that the original colonial idea wasn't a radical division between church and state. But when you get Roger Williams, Rhode Island, and the Baptist Radical Reformation ideology, their assumption is basically, no, actually separation of church and state means division between and opposition to the state, because their theology was the state is basically Satan. It's the beast. Mm-hmm. So the church is this private affair thing that you have that doesn't have any effect really in the civil sphere or on the rest of society. So the very beginning of the divorcing of public life and Christianity to relegating Christianity to be basically emasculated and cucked to something that's just your personal devotion begins with Roger Williams and Baptists. So the Anabaptist ethos is what I've been arguing for a long time. That actually won in the Reformation because the classical reformers didn't believe that. Like they still believed that there was this explicit duty that the state had to God to at least basic Christian principles, whether it's Luther or Calvin, maybe even Zwingli. They thought that there still had to be Christian principles in government. But with the Enlightenment, or excuse me, with the Radical Reformation, with the Baptist idea, which became dominant in America, the idea was, no, there's actually a complete severance between God and government. That's going to be based on generic natural law principles. And then you can have your private church thing be whatever you want.